Good morning, class. Welcome to this channel. So today our topic is human respiratory system. Fine. In last class we studied about the respiration, how foods get broken down into simpler form. So today we will learn how the organs helps in this respiration. How do we get oxygen and what happens to the carbon dioxide that produced during the respiration? In last class we studied about three different types of respiration. First type, where glucose, a 6 carbon molecule broken down into 3 carbon molecule, pyruvate, and then as per the availability of oxygen it creates different products. If pyruvate's broken down in presence of oxygen, then it is a aerobic respiration. If it occurs in the absence of oxygen, then it is anaerobic respiration. And if there is lack of oxygen, so it occurs in our muscle cells. And the products are different. Like for aerobic respiration, the products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy. For anaerobic respiration, the products are ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. And for lack of oxygen, the products are lactic acid and energy. So we have discussed all these three types of respiration in previous class. Now what happens, as we discussed, that different organisms have different kind of organs for this respiration. They need their food to be broken down into simpler form, so they have evolved different types of organs, or we can say respiratory system. Like in terrestrial organisms are those organisms who lives on the land. Like terrestrial organisms have environmental oxygen with them, which they can use for the breaking of their food. But aquatic organism which lives on water, they need different kind of organ. Means the organ which terrestrial organisms have will not helpful in the aquatic organism. Why? Because they need to take the dissolved oxygen. So let's discuss about the fishes. Like in fishes, what happens? They do need the oxygen. So what do? They cannot take oxygen from the environment because they are in the water. So they need to take dissolved oxygen, and for that purpose they have gills. So what do they do while swimming? While they are in the water, they gulp water and they put the water in the gills, and then gills separate out the oxygen from the water. Whatever dissolved oxygen is there in the water, they take fishes take those oxygen through the gills. Fine. So what happens, because they are not getting the environmental oxygen, atmospheric oxygen, so they need to take the dissolved oxygen, and that is why the breathing rate is faster in aquatic organism as compared to the terrestrial organism. Last time also in the last exam, this 2020 only, in this 2020 only there was a question in board exam, why terrestrial organism have less breathing rate as compared to aquatic organism. And the answer is with you, because they have to take the dissolved oxygen. So that is why the rate of breathing in aquatic organism is much faster than in terrestrial organism, because they have to force it past the gills and then they have to take the dissolved oxygen by the blood. So now we are discussing about the respiratory system of the human. So as we all know, we take oxygen from the environment. So we have a different kind of respiratory system. Let's discuss about this system. As in the alimentary canal, or we can say in the digestive system, here we had the buccal cavity. Fine. So when we are ingesting food through the mouth, that cavity was buccal cavity. Now in this case we are taking oxygen. So we take oxygen through our nostrils. Nostrils we all know. So these two holes which we have in our nose, they are nostrils. So oxygen will go inside through these nostrils to the nasal cavity. These nasal cavity do have mucus and fine hairs, and this mucus and these fine hairs are really very helpful, because first of all they do not allow all the microorganisms to enter through our nose. Second, whatever dust particle or anything is coming through the nostril will not be able to reach the nasal cavity, and moreover, fine. After that, in this cavity, when we move on, the next is pharynx. So pharynx is the throat part, and it is a kind of joint between buccal and nasal cavity. Then we move to larynx, which is voice box, and then comes the trachea, windpipe. As we had in the alimentary canal, we had esophagus, food pipe. Here, because wind is going, air is going, so we have windpipe. Fine. Now there is a very important organ which is epiglottis. The organ is epiglottis. Epiglottis is a cartilaginous flap kind of thing which is there at the mouth of the trachea. Basically, trachea and esophagus are running parallel. Fine. So these two holes are together. Now what may happen when we are eating, when we are swallowing food may go into the trachea as well, right? And it may block the passage of air. So what happens when we swallow the food? This cartilaginous flap, which is epiglottis, it folds itself on the trachea, so that food does not go in the trachea. So while we are swallowing food, it prevents food going to trachea. Fine. So this trachea is further divided into two bronchi. If one is there, then we call it bronchus. If two are there, then we call them bronchi. These bronchi are further divided, further branched, and these branchings are called bronchioles. So now understand, trachea is dividing into bronchi, and bronchi is further dividing into bronchioles. And at the tip of bronchioles, we have a balloon-like structure which is called alveoli. At the tip of the bronchioles, we have a balloon-like structure which is called alveoli. Although it look like a balloon, rather it is a cluster of grapes. बहुत सारे अंगूर के गुच्छे की तरह it is present at the tip. And then we have diaphragm. Diaphragm is a muscular structure. It's like a rubber sheet which can move downward and upward. So we will see, when we will learn about the mechanism of breathing, we will see how all these parts works together. Fine. So have a look of alveoli first.